Hey guys, Pulse here, and welcome back to yet another episode of Delving Deep ESO. And now, I want to say first off, strap yourself in guys, because there is a lot to go over in today's episode. Now, in today's episode, we will be discussing the resource systems of Elder Scrolls Online, the finesse systems, along with the ultimates that coincide with them, the synergy mechanics at play, and really at the end I'm going to do a kind of light wrap-up of almost a second talk over about the action combat, and really this time taking into account the subjects talked about in this episode alongside the subjects talked about in the previous episode, which was about action-oriented combat. Now, are you ready to jump in yet? Can you feel it? Are you ready? Sure you are. Let's get right into it, shall we? Now, first up, the resource system. Elder Scrolls Online will have the three main resources of all of the previous test games, namely health, stamina, and magicka, but there will be the addition of a brand new and fourth resource called finesse. Now, I'll start off with the three you're most familiar with, and at the top of the list is health. As you would expect, health is your life force and serves as both the numerical and visual representation for your remaining ability to stay alive while playing the game. Now, of the four resources, health is easiest to understand, and in my opinion is also the most boring. I never go for like a super health-induced character. It's just not me. I like to have the risk and high damage. That's what I like to play. But honestly, you can't really take that little red bar up in the corner for granted, because when it's gone, so are you. So you really need to keep that in the back of your mind while playing. It's not something that can ever run out, but that's kind of obvious. Now on to stamina. This is the resource which will it'll gradually regenerate over time, much as it did in the previous Elder Scrolls titles, and it will play an enormously integral role no matter what kind of character you intend to play while in Elder Scrolls Online. Now, stamina will be the resource which powers a massive number of gameplay options, including sprinting, dodging, sneaking, swapping weapons, charging weapon attacks, which would be holding down your left mouse button for a couple of seconds and releasing that for a powerful attack. It's also used for blocking and using skills which derive from weapon-based skill lines. For example, if you had a skill which came from leveling up a two-handed sword, and you put that skill on your skill bar, that skill will use stamina instead of magicka. Now, for this reason, stamina will need to be managed properly by all characters, no matter your type, no matter your playstyle, that sort of thing. Now, there are I guess it's two things here, which I should mention. Now, I said that weapon skill line skills we use up stamina, and I also said that charging attacks with your left mouse button uses stamina. Now, there is a sort of detail there that needs to be mentioned, that staves, both the destruction and the healing versions, this is not true, they will use magicka, which I feel is a good segue into magicka. This resource will be limited, unlike stamina, which it does recharge, but it will be extremely slow in combat, and it really will only recharge outside of combat. This will provide the power to cast nearly all skills in the game, except for the physical damage-based weapon skills, which I kind of mentioned a second earlier. Now, magicka, like health, is really rather bland in terms of innovation for this game, or really the lack of innovation, I should say. However, it's a little bit more interesting in this game when you take it and put it into the whole system that is the resource management based combat that ESO will have. And really when you take that all into account, magicka becomes a much more enticing stat to use, and a much more important stat as well. And it really will just let the magicka it will give the magicka impact, and it'll really let the stat shine for those who know how to use it well, instead of people that just like to front load all their abilities and run out. The resource management side of this game will really let magicka shine. Now, before I move on to the finesse system, let me just quickly explain how the three previously mentioned stats will kind of progress and level with you. Now, with each level gained while you're leveling your character, you'll gain a character level, much as you would in the previous test games, and with each level up, you'll be allowed one stat point to sort of put in and allocate to one of the three stats. And in addition, it has been mentioned that these three stats will also have skill lines. So from what I can understand here is the stats will gain sort of levels depending on use. So if you cast more spells which use magicka, you will gain sort of skill points in the Magica line, and if you, I'm not really sure how you do health, perhaps equipping armor which boosts health, or getting hit a lot will provide boosts to the health skill line. That hasn't really been explained, but there will be skill lines associated with these 3 stats, and that is pretty cool. Now, these 3 stats will be with you pretty much from the get-go. They are going to be an important and integral part to the whole play experience with this game. So no matter your level, your class, your build, your gameplay style, your weapon choice, no matter what you pick with the sort of customization of your character, these 3 stats will be of importance to you. So don't let that kind of get off your mind. They're going to be important no matter what. Now finally, let's get on to the newly introduced Finesse resource and that whole system kind of involved in that. Now Finesse is the resource which will fuel our ultimate abilities. Now Finesse is earned by quote-unquote skillful play. Now there hasn't been really a 100% clarification on what this exactly means, and really what kind of actions while playing are labeled as skillful. I mean, that's kind of such a broad term, because some things that maybe one person thinks is, whoa, I'm doing badass, is actually not very good, and it's all sort of subjective on what you could consider to be skillful play. Now, however, speculation and just really some basic logic, to be honest, would suggest that stuff like dodging, blocking, interrupting at the right time, and similar actions to that are going to be the real sort of actions that provide gain to your finesse bar. Now, it has also been said that certain skill lines and some abilities perhaps may provide bonuses to finesse gain, and that could either be through basic application of the spell. Perhaps there are spells and skills which deliberately do low damage but provide boosts to finesse, or that sort of thing. Or perhaps in sort of certain particular situations, there will be skills which provide an extra sort of chunk of finesse. A possible example that I came up with would be a backstab-like ability would provide higher damage from hitting someone in the back, but if you attacked from behind and you were also from a sneaking position, so your enemy didn't see you were in combat yet, it would also grant extra finesse alongside the extra damage, that kind of thing. Now, the ultimate abilities really come into play at this point with the finesse system. Now, these are the skills which they require a large amount of this resource and are supposed to really provide substantial power behind them, be it in the form of like ludicrous CC potential, huge damage, game-changing healing, maybe even resurrections, that sort of thing. We really don't know what the possibilities are, but the fact that there are so many possibilities going around in my head really tells me that this is going to be something pretty fantastic if done correctly, and I can't wait to see what kinds of ultimate abilities we have to play with. Now, I should mention that finesse, there has kind of been a little bit of contradicting information on the system, but from what I can gather, it'll work something like this. You'll be in the middle of your fight and sort of using your skills and dodging and all that stuff I kind of mentioned to build the finesse resource. Now, there are kind of 2 stories going on. So one saying that it'll be kind of like an ultimate ability bar, and once it's at the top, you can't go beyond that point in terms of sort of keeping the resource growing. It'll have a max bar, and until you use it, you won't be able to recharge for another finesse ability. But to be honest, I don't think that's what we're going to get. We're going to get something more along the lines of this. You'll have this finesse ability, which you'll gather all of the kind of bar, similar to if you had kind of like this ultimate ability thing. And there will be sort of like the line and tier where the ultimate ability you have equipped will be able to be activated. However, you will be able to sort of keep a backlog of finesse. Now, from my understanding, it will probably diminish outside of combat fairly quickly, which makes me think of it kind of almost like an improved version of the rage mechanics in other MMOs, which, if you're not familiar, is usually something like a warrior type character, and it's essentially when they get hit and when they deal damage, they gain this bar, and when it gets to the end, they get to use some abilities and that sort of thing, and then when they're out of combat, it diminishes fairly quickly. Now, I think we're going to get something like that with the finesse system, and the reason I think this is for 2 reasons. One, I really don't think that they would go the way of having a fairly low peak of resource, because the whole thing is that this game is about resource management, and if they don't allow you to sort of strategically place your finesse abilities in combat where you see fit, instead of making it once you gain it you use it kind of thing, that'll be kind of countering their own combat system. And two, there has been kind of some rumor and mention of abilities which require channeling, which, so instead of the ability sort of using all of your finesse at one time, an ability which channels would slowly diminish it while you're sort of holding the cast down, that sort of thing. And for that reason, I think that we will be able to we'll reach the line where our finesse abilities will become castable, but we will have a substantial amount of sort of backlog of finesse we can accrue while in combat. Now, that's really all there is to the finesse and ultimate system, but like I said previously, it's really a fantastic idea, and I really can't wait to see, because a lot of people, and I think a lot would agree with me, like the warrior-based system of the Rage, and you kind of get that feeling of build up and then you get to do something really badass. The fact that they're giving that to everybody is definitely a boon in my book. Good call on their part. Now, let's really jump away from the resources and the ultimates and that sort of thing and get into the synergy system. Now, really the synergy system is the ability to combine different skills together and provide different effects. And what I mean by this is, actually I'll just go from here. The system, it's very reminiscent of Guild Wars 2, and I know you guys must be really tired of me making that comparison, but honestly it's the most logical choice here to provide a point of reference, and it's not a negative in any way. For people who think so, come on now, don't be stupid. It's great. The combat in Guild Wars 2, in my opinion, is incredibly well done, so don't take that as a negative. It's actually quite a positive thing, in my opinion. Now, for those unfamiliar with that title, the idea is rather simple. I'll just give an example, because it's much easier to give an example than try and explain in sort of different terminology. A good one is a sorcerer type character uses an AoE style fire ability, which sort of leaves this lingering patch of flame upon the ground for so many seconds. Now, while the fire patch is still sort of burning in the world, an archer could potentially have the ability to shoot their arrows through the fire, and it would add flame to the ammunition upon hitting their target. Or another one would be in the same vein of that, a sort of sword-swinging warrior type character kind of flails around and swings his blade wildly in the fire that's lingering there, and sends fireballs in kind of sporadic directions, sort of dealing extra AoE damage and adding a kind of range component to what the warrior kind of character could do. Now, what this system really allows is really a better sense of team integration, and also the potential to sort of change how group-based content is tackled. And I should say that also you can, if you're skilled in certain sort of skill choices, could potentially also provide a single player the ability to utilize this system also. But obviously this is meant for group play. This is a system that's really been proven to be engaging, in my opinion, and I'm glad they decided to integrate it into Elder Scrolls Online. And I really feel like it's a logical step in MMO combat, and I'm very surprised Guild Wars 2 was really, it's the only one I can think of that really kind of came along and did it well, in my opinion. Now, no matter, it should be mentioned that no matter if you're a stranger or longtime friends, this system does come into play. It's not like something you have to be in a party to use. It's something that will just happen. So if you're just out in the field killing stuff, and some of the abilities you have chosen happen to leave lingering fields of flame or what have you, there's all kinds of combinations here. And somebody else comes along and joins in the fight, synergies will just happen. It will be part of combat, and it will be just, when you see it, it will be fairly cool. I mean, I don't know how people feel about the sort of combo system that was in Guild Wars 2, not that they've had it for a long time, but hopefully that Zenimax has taken that into sort of account when designing this system, and done well to provide enough variety and that sort of thing. But it's still, no matter what they give us here, the synergy system is going to be pretty damn cool. Now, that's a lot to have taken in already, to be honest, but I really want to go over very quickly this time to try and best wrap up the combat as a whole with all of the ESO mechanics in mind, and to just really take that all in. Now, combat will be about proper resource management and skillful play. It will be fast-paced and engaging, with really a limited skill bar that sort of changes the way that you play. The build of your character and your skill choices will change the way you play on an encounter by basis, with customization possible to you nearly 100% of the time. But it will still, the choices will matter there. However, it's not so concrete that it's limiting. It's open, but it's not. It's strategic, but it's free. It's a nice combination here. Synergies will provide another strategic angle to consider if you're in a group, or like I said, if you're skillful enough to capitalize on your own skill set, to really combine skills and make you feel like you're actually melding together your abilities, that sort of thing. The way that you can just sort of customize all the time and just all of that together. It's really a most exciting part of Elder Scrolls Online. This sort of amalgamation that is the sum of its parts. The resource management, fast-paced combat, player choice on the battlefield, the ultimates, the finesse system, the potential circumstances of changing skills, and that sort of thing. I mean, like I said, when I mentioned ultimate skills, the potential there is fantastic, because I should mention this now. That's just kind of hit me while doing this. That with the finesse system, what they kind of do here is they allow the ability for the character to make a choice which is very reminiscent of previous MMOs that allow for like quote-unquote heavy cooldowns, that sort of thing, which are usually there to sort of shift the tide of battle. In this case, it will be about skillful play leading up to the ability to make that choice. And that honestly just hit me while recording, and that sounds fantastic to me, that if you're on your toes and you're just really working your ass off to give yourself all that you can, you will also have these extra choices to provide and really shape the combat field as you wish, and that's really exciting. Now, that's really the most powerful combination of systems that I can think of in an MMO in a long time, and it really has me itching to jump in and play, and I really, hopefully, sometime soon we will see some more beta coverage, or damn it, some NDA drop, or just give us an open beta, or just send me an alpha. That would be fantastic. But there's just so much going on in this game, and I know there was a lot for this one episode, and I really hope you found it enjoyable and somewhat informative. And really, guys, this has been Pulse. I'd like to say thank you so much for watching.